Yeah, we've done that before.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Specialty Cropcast. This is episode 15.
15.
Wow, 15. I only thought we were going to get like 8 done this year, but
I
here
know.
we are at 15. To my right, as usual, backward hat Steve. Zach is missing this episode. He's having a little bit of an operation, so we wish him a speedy
The
recovery.
best, yeah.
And our guest this week is the coordinator of the Northwest Michigan Horticultural Research Center, a MSU Extension Specialist with 20 years in fruit research, known for her IPM SWD modeling, high-density orchard systems, climate resilience work, co-founder also of Tandem Ciders, and 2025, the Cherry Industry Person of the Year. Nikki Rothwell,
Nice.
thanks for coming
Nikki.
in.
That's pretty dramatic. But thank you for having me on. But yeah, that 20 years makes me feel old, so thanks.
So obviously we talk to farmers, agribusiness owners, industry experts, and I think you fall under a couple categories there. So thanks for coming in. We've been trying to organize this for a little bit, and we finally made it happen. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks. Thanks for having me, and thanks for being patient for me to get on. I know we did try for a lot, but 15 is a nice number, so I feel good about that.
Yeah.
It's not 13.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm Nikki. Like you said, I do a lot with Michigan State University and working with farmers. So that's my real love and passion is to work with growers across northern Michigan in particular. But of course, I have a statewide appointment and help other farmers around the state. So I've been doing this. This will be 21. So I've been here for quite some time. And I was thinking about some of the changes as I was driving over here today. So I'm really proud of you guys for doing this podcast. It seems like definitely like hip and like modern. And because I was thinking about when I first started, I would do the Codaphone. And you guys are like, what's that?
Yeah.
So the Codaphone was, I would go in the back room of the research center and I would like read like this script that would be like, okay, I found 4 cherry fruit flies today. And then you'd record it and then growers would call into the station and you wanted to hear stone fruit. Push 1.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so weird. And then, like when I was new, I was super uptight about everything. And so then I'd be like, oh, I screwed up that. Oh, I screwed up that. So then I'd be back in the back way, like, I found 4 cherry fruit. Like you'd repeat it, like, because you wanted to sound good on this Codaphone.
That really isn't that long ago, though.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
20
it was 20
years.
years ago. We used
That's
to
not
do that.
that long ago.
Well, I mean, I remember actually your father-in-law. I'd be like, hey, Paul, I'm going to send you this text or I'm going to send you this email. And he's like, my grandkids are coming over. Or like, like my son-in-law will
They
be
can help
over.
me.
Yeah, I know. But that was like,
He
like,
calls me once a day for tech advice.
no.
Yes.
Well, because I feel like he's gotten so much better. But a lot of those guys would be like the
But it's
email
advancing
thing.
still, Like
Yeah, it
he can
is.
check his email, but now it's like new things like, his Starlink's not working or,
Yeah,
it's
I get
like
that.
He doesn't get caught in the where you have to donate or your bill's overdue. Click on this link and put your credit card number. And
yes.
He's
No.
one of those
He's
targets.
been caught in that.
No.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Ask him about it.
That's no
Well,
good.
It worked out okay.
But I do feel like that's changed too because like now I can call guys, text guys, like we can make decisions like in the spray cab of like, hey Nikki, I have this in the spray barn. I ran out. What else? I got to get back in the spray cab. What can I spray? And that's really changed. And
Yep.
I remember when I first started too, we had those bag phones. Remember those?
In vehicles?
Yeah, in
Yes.
vehicles. Like this, it was like a huge contraption, like in a suitcase. You'd bring it out and put it in. So I feel like a lot of things like that have changed. And so I'm really pumped that you guys are here where you are kind of on that cutting edge of like doing ag fun stuff.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people doing podcasts, I guess, in general, but nobody in the specialty crops space. And so that's kind of where I saw a little gap. And I talked to Steve and said, hey, do you want to?
I think I brought it up to you first.
Oh,
but-
did you?
Okay. Yeah, you take it. Yeah, you take credit for it.
I don't remember that. I think
It was actually over breakfast, I think.
Was it?
We were just like, dude, we should just do this.
Oh,
should.
I mean, it's an awesome idea. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's totally, especially that niche. I mean, especially crop growers are also just pretty special anyways. They have unique things. And I think the more that you can bring that out and kind of differentiate kind of with the row crop guys.
Right, yeah. That's the difference,
Yeah.
though, is there's a
Yeah,
growing
I
gap
agree.
between it. And there's people that are interested in jumping into this market and getting their feet wet in specialty crops also. And so it's kind of cool to do that. But before we get too far, this episode is brought to you by Wilbur Ellis, delivering trusted crop protection, nutrition, agronomic support to growers across the country for more than 100 years. Whether you're in the orchard, the field, or somewhere in between, partner with the team that understands your operation. What originally inspired you to pursue fruit research and eventually take on your role?
So I've told this story. A lot of people have heard this before, but I actually worked at the research center the year I was 21. So I was finishing up at Western Michigan. It must have been a junior year, in between my junior and senior year. And I got a job at the research center. And because I was interested in ag. So I grew up in Kingsley. My dad had a beef cattle farm. So it was a small, so my dad did it part-time. So he taught, and then we also had cattle. And I was interested in agriculture, but again, we just mainly had animals. So I got a job working at the research center, and I was just like really enamored with like the whole thing about extension. Extension to me is really unique, and I feel like we're losing it in the country a little bit. But this unique idea where you're bringing real-life research onto farms, and then growers are actually making decisions and making changes because of the research and the information and the education you're providing. And so I started with this guy. His name was Gary Thornton. I don't know if you guys remember him. He's a long time ago. He went on to banking. I don't know how you get from extension to banking. I know, exactly. But I worked for him, and I was just really, he'd go to these meetings where these guys would come and learn about kind of what the pests were that week. And he just, went on farm. They called him with questions. And I just felt like it was really transformational how extension could move people and change people's lives. And so I ended up going on to get multiple degrees. Because the other thing I felt like I really wanted to do was research. And research that you guys find important on your farms. I mean, so like there's always the researcher, or you get the guy down on campus that's doing rogue things that don't really matter. And I feel like having that kind of balance between that extension piece where you're delivering that education and also that research that you're doing that's mattered is something that I think is pretty impactful. So it was really, really important step that I worked at the research center. And then I went on to get a couple degrees, and I feel like kind of it set that trajectory. And I knew I wanted to come back here because, again, I feel like the growers up here are pretty special. The crops we grow are pretty special. So I felt like that was really kind of all happened. And then my mom really got me the job, so it felt good.
Nice. So you co-founded a cidery a while back with your husband. You talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
What drove you to that decision?
Yeah, so when I met Dan, he owned a microbrewery and restaurant, and I was getting my PhD at UMass Amherst. And I had this friend, my friend Sue, and I was like, these people from New England, they're different. I feel like I just can't, they used to call me the apple cheeker. They're like, oh, here she comes. She's from the Midwest. She talks a lot. She smiles. She's hugging people. Like, what is this? And I was like, these New Englanders are so chilly. So I was like, we got to find a place that I become a regular. So my friend Sue got this job in this little town just north of the university called Greenfield. And so Dan owned a restaurant and microbrewery called the People's Pint. And so we'd show up every Friday and kind of trying to become the regulars. And so Dan bartended, on Friday nights. And so then I was like, ooh, this guy's cute. I thought he was Irish. He wasn't. He was just American. Yeah, it was exciting. But anyway, so we'd come every Friday night, and then we ended up dating, and then things moved. And then I got the job at MSU. And so when we moved back, we were going to do another microbrewery. But then Dan actually went to Great Lakes Expo, and he sat in on a session on hard cider. So MSU had just done kind of like, I guess it was a year we must have had excess apples. And it was like, what do we do with all these this extra fruit? So they did this kind of study from kind of the marketing department. And they were like, hey, could we do hard cider? So this was way back in 2004, because it was the year we got married, 2004. And he went down there and he was like, hey, maybe instead of a microbrewery, what about doing cider? And the other thing that was really mind-blowing to Dan is he was like, because there was an orchard where we lived in Massachusetts, and it was kind of like the Clarkville orchards, period. Where here, he was like, what? There is so much fruit. Like everywhere I go, it's tons of apples, tons of cherries. And he was like, well, should we do a cidery? So we got a grant called the Julian Still Grant. They don't offer those anymore. And it was to do a feasibility study if cider would fly. And so that's kind of how Tandem was born. And then Tandem got the name because when I finished my degree at UMass, we were riding a tandem bicycle. Who has time to ride a bicycle like that long? So anyways, we were riding a tandem, and then we went on a trip to England. So we took British Airways over. They put our bicycle on, we put the tires, pumped them back up, and we literally biked out of Heathrow Airport. Some guy in a huge turban was like, have fun. I was like, okay. And so when we had done that, there was cider all over that part of England where we visited. So we tried to make Tandem look like a little, like Irish.
Slice over there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so,
cool.
I don't know.
I never heard that whole story. That's awesome.
It was a little nauseating when we first opened because we were smooching on every cover with that story. So that honeymoon's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. So how has running that business changed the way that you think about, have you learned anything from that business that helps or you think kind of spills over into growing apples or helping growers produce a crop that's good for a cidery or help them make decisions, whether it's marketing their fruit to, into some sort of production that's similar to that?
So I've kind of, I've tried to keep things a little separate just in terms of Tandem and MSU in kind of like the monetary sense. But I think what it's really helped me understand a little bit is that I feel like sometimes we as growers, we grow the crop and then we're like, it's magic. It gets gone, it gets, taken away and I should get paid. But there's this whole other side of that, whether it gets made into an end product like cider or if it gets sold as a fresh market apple or a bagged apple, there's marketing people, there's promotion people. All that chain, I think, is really important. And I feel like growers sometimes, and I know it's kind of easy to get caught up in your own thing sometimes, but it's like, okay, I grew the best apples ever. What do you mean you can't sell them? What do you mean that doesn't make good cider? So I feel like I kind of can understand both sides of that a little bit. And so I think that's one thing I can bring to it. But it was interesting today. We were having this conversation with a new cider maker, and I had coffee with him this morning and trying to understand, again, those managerial roles from kind of what I do at MSU to what I do at Tandem Ciders. And I feel like sometimes maybe having some of those more business structured things for growers might be a way for Extension to help. And trying to figure out how do you lead? How do you, set by example? How do you write the books? All those kinds of things. I think what growers they like to drive the tractor. They like to do those things outside. And especially today, growing fruit is way different than it was before. There's food safety. There's all these different components to it. And I feel like that's really important for kind of growers, which is why Bruce was part of that new farm group that we had. So it was a young farmer leadership group of trying to understand that it's not just the tractor driving and the fun, why you got into farming, that there's a whole other ways to look at agriculture and also a way to make money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's sometimes on that older generation that they were just like you're saying, just doing the farming, but there's a lack of that older generation with, you have to pay attention a little bit more because input costs are on the rise and the prices are not where they should be. So education on banking and stuff like that is something the older generation didn't really think too much about, but now that's at the forefront of what you have to be good at now in order to keep a sustainable farming operation going forward.
Well, you're not going to, literally, I've been to growers, we'd have these meetings with these, ag folks on the MSU team that would help with profits and, trying to look at the books and, the guy gets out the shoebox and it's just like receipts and they're pulling stuff out of the shoebox. And now a lot of that's done on the computer and stuff. And that's really important. And so having savvy, new people on the farm, I think is really important. And then that farm transition piece can't be understated either. How do we get that farm from maybe it's not so profitable to that next generation where they can make a living at it?
Mm-hmm.
I always like that's
the
why
technology advancements alone, right?
Totally,
yes,
totally,
is overwhelming for most farmers who have been in it for a while.
That's why we need farms to be profitable so you guys can take over that next generation. And so, I remember this is the age-old question, how do we make money at agriculture? And I think you're right. You got to look at the input costs. You got to look at the technology advances. And I feel like, even on the extension side, I feel like we're behind on technology compared to where I feel like we should be.
All right, we can switch gears a little bit and move into kind of research and kind of what you're doing at the station. So obviously we can go through some of the biggest issues that are facing cherry and apple growers. And number one, most years is SWD, spotted wing Drosophila. You've done a lot of work with that. Just explain a little bit about the process of how they can ruin the fruit, how we can work on keeping them out, where they come from, and a little more in depth.
Yeah, so SWD has been kind of an interesting project for me because that's what I am trained as and as an entomologist. But I feel like when you work in the field, you don't get the luxury to kind of pick and choose like those lucky jokers on campus. Those of us, we kind of in the field, we kind of like if you need help with fertilizer, we help you with fertilizer. But so it's been kind of funny, not funny, but kind of fun as an entomologist to dive into a project that was really meaningful to growers. So the thing that this bug is that it's related to, the regular old fruit flies you get in your wine or your cider in the fall. But this one's from, obviously, Asia, different countries in Asia. And just like other fruit flies, it just cranks through generations. So you can have a generation, we've done it in the lab every 5 days. But in the field, probably it's mostly 7 days. So every 5 to 7 days, one female lays another 300 eggs. So by the end of the season, it's just a numbers game, right? And so, there's just so many bugs out there. Like, even if you have the most ironclad spray program, you can't keep them out. So trying to understand kind of overall reducing that population. Or, the thing that I had first, early on is we're growing cherries, especially in northern Michigan, big trees, big canopies, and then when you look at kind of all the traits of these flies, they like warm, they like humid. And so we're creating this perfect environment. So some of the early work we did was like, prune them up, guys. Let some airflow in. And we found that we reduced infestation by 40% just by pruning trees. And so, reducing that relative humidity within the canopy. So that was one thing. Then the other crazy thing we did is start playing around on the floor. So looking at, we have obviously grass centers in almost all of our orchards. Growers, when we did different trials where we kind of let the grass grow long and then other places where we kind of kept it mowed tight, we could reduce populations by mowing them tight on the ground, and it would affect what's going on in the trees. And that was a little mind-blowing to me, to look at that, mowing your orchard was going to change that. Yeah. So those were kind of some cultural things that we growers could change. But then the other thing that just drove me nuts is that you'd go out there and there'd be flies all around. And then it was like all of a sudden there was a light switch or like some kind of click went off, and then now we had infested fruit. And I couldn't really understand that. And it was kind of like bugging me because it would be like there'd be no infestation and then there'd be like, And John Wise got caught, on efficacy trials. We'd screw up so many trials because of that. So then it kind of was like, you idiot, Nikki. It's about the fruit. The flies are there. It's when the fruit is actually can have that, females can actually lay in or when they prefer. So then for years, we did all these trials in the lab where we'd put different ripenesses of fruit. And then we were able to measure those. I had an awesome horticulture student. She's actually now Cheyenne Sloan. You guys should interview her. She's fun. She's the blueberry educator now in Southwest. But she was my summer tech, and we took pictures of all these different ripenesses of fruit. And then we found that there was a relationship when the fruit turns from red to green, a certain trajectory on this, scale, that when it had this right exact moment, they would lay eggs. And then we overlaid that with some work from Dr. Flory. So Jim Flory's been around forever at MSU, just retired a little bit ago. But he has a really nice model, a growing degree day model on Montmorency. So we could overlay when the females actually started laying eggs in the lab with the Montmorency growing degree days. And then we could give you guys a model that says, hey, you guys are fine up till this point. So we developed that model, based on some lab work, and then we trialed it in the field for 3 years. So tart cherries were the first ones to have a model for SWD in the country. And it was really based on the fruit ripeness and not the bug itself, where everyone else was concentrating on the bug. But we just saw that it's like those bugs are always there, but they're not causing you guys headaches until a certain ripeness of the fruit. So it was kind of a fun project to do along. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, so I think we're moving further with like parasitoid wasps to reduce that overall background population. And then this year we're going to play around with, I don't know how I feel about it yet, but we'll see. Sterile male release. So basically you release those sterile males, and when they mate, they obviously they have no viable eggs.
Yep.
I don't know about that yet, but we're going to try it out and just see.
How about the trap and kill traps? right? You guys have played around a lot with
We did.
those.
We
Yep.
did.
What have you seen from those? And there's other ones that we've talked about, right? With those
Yeah, for
ruby,
sure.
I don't remember what
Yeah,
those are called.
Biomagnet ruby is what we
Yes.
tested this year, actually in your orchards. We had 3 orchards around. So we had some variable results. I just met with that company last week, Sutera, and they one we did it in 3 orchards, 1 in Leelanau and 2 in Antrim County. And we did find that one of the orchards, they did reduce the overall population and infestation, but not in the other 2.
Okay.
But I'll tell you guys what, and I told the company this, so they're not going to come after me on this podcast here, but I did tell them, we found them, and Tommy was going to kill me, I think, but they, actually Paul, when we shook the trees, they didn't stay on the trees, so they were all over the ground. And then I was like terrified they were going to be in the tanks. So when the cherries went to the processor, you have all these like sacks of chemicals like like on the line. So what we did, so after we went to Paul's orchard, I saw him on the ground, and I'm like, oh no. And then Tommy was like, you got to get these out, Nikki. So then I went up and we took all of them out of your orchards. And then the other orchard in Leelanau County, Jake actually called me and he was like, Nikki, we're going to go up to that orchard next. You got to get them out. So Dan, my husband, and I put headlamps on and took them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we took them out of the tree.
Those things were everywhere.
Well,
How many?
Well, there were 60 per acre, and we did 10 acres.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were out there. I know, but I
all by headlamp.
Yes.
Well, but I was so worried because I didn't want these guys to get cherries rejected because of our test. You know, these guys always let me in their orchards on the goodwill, and then I screw it up, and they can't, like harvest their
next
crop.
year.
I know.
Maybe Nikki's.
Yeah, exactly. I was super worried about that. So we got them out, most of them, I think, and no one got caught.
Yep.
But yeah, and that's the other thing I think is beautiful about our growers, that they're willing to let us try those crazy things in the orchard. But if things go wrong, you got to be able to figure out how to like backtrack and make it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of SWD is always interesting because if depending on the weather, right? So if we have an interesting summer, it kind of falls to the back burner because we had one year super bad 4 years ago, I think it was. And then the last couple
What
summers.
do you mean bad?
We a lot of dry weather, and we had SWD, and then it kind of the last couple.
Well, no,
years,
usually when it's
nice.
dry, it's better. I think you got it backwards.
I got it backwards.
Yeah,
That's
dry
right.
better.
Yeah.
I got it backwards.
Yep.
But we've had a lot of those recently, and then really dry weather through harvest. So some years it's a huge problem, and then we've had other years where you have moisture through the harvest season, and all of a sudden it's not that big of a deal.
Totally. Well, that's,
so that's
why
the hard part to like.
Well, and the guys in Utah that grow tart cherries there, they don't care because they're growing them in a desert.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I feel like we're up against definitely harder climatic conditions. But then the other thing I worry about up here is we have so many woodlots. So the woodlots have autumn olive, they have pin cherry, wild cherry, honeysuckle. Though you'll find larvae. Go out there and later in August and go into some of those wild fruits. They'll be loaded with larvae.
Very difficult to maintain a line. That's usually the first place. If you can't hold it off, you go to harvest. The first place we check is on the borders and along the wooded lines, and it's real hard to feel bad about walking away from the first 4 or 5 rows of an orchard. You just got to keep going until you can't find it anymore, and then give yourself a little more space because usually, those buggers are hard to find if it's not in, in all the fruit. I mean, it has that very distinct scent. It's like Bruce and I always joke because you can smell it like vinegar.
Well, but that's when it already hits the fan, right?
Yeah, that's when
you know
that's
what I mean.
When you're walking away from that
you're
fruit.
like, we're out of here. Yeah. If you can you can smell it. Yeah, that's a problem.
Never good.
So one of the things I am actually interested in, they've been doing this with blueberry a little bit, because I don't think traps are that effective. So the traps are effective early when there's no other fruit out there, but then you can't make something more attractive than the beautiful ripe, cherry in an orchard, especially millions of them. And so those traps lose their efficacy, or, they provide you no information.
Right.
So my new thing is they've been doing it, Rufus Isaacs has been doing it in blueberries, trying for you guys to come up with some kind of sampling method that's more reliable to do exactly what you're saying, is go out there, sample the hot spots or the spots by the woodlots that that might be problematic. So we're trying to give you guys tools. The other thing is, I don't like this as a PR story either, is what do you do about it? You don't want to tell everyone you're spraying for it all the time. And so trying to find that balance of, doing the right thing, environmentally. And so I feel like that's what that model's done, I think, for the cherry growers, is really shown, hey, Well, because remember how I used to do it? Remember we'd have the traps out there. We'd catch one fly. I'd flip out and tell you guys to go like get in the tractor.
Right.
And that's changed because the fruit's not, susceptible yet. So I feel like that was a good story, like to tell from an environmental perspective and a sustainability perspective, is that we're only using materials when we need them. So I love that too.
So what time of day are they most active?
Do you know we've done this, Steve? Do
I
you
did not know that.
Yes, because I've listened to so many podcasts. You guys should have been on then.
Shoot.
But we'd go out there. I'd start at 5 a.m, and then I'd go out there and sit from 5 to 8, and then Karen would sit from 8 to 11, and then my summer tech would sit from 11 to whatever, and we would do that. We did that for days. And, well, here's the thing. I don't know if we just couldn't see them early. Because when it's, at 5 a.m., it's still pretty dark.
Yeah.
Even if the sun's starting to come up, it's still dark and when you have a big canopy. So I did find that the populations were lower, 5, 6, 7. And as soon as it hit probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, those numbers went up.
Okay.
And again, I think it got warm enough.
Warm, humidity.
Yep.
Yeah, I
It's
think
that-
so. But again, I don't know if I just couldn't see them early. So I had we all switched times because I'm like, maybe I'm not awake. Maybe we need someone else, with better
Yeah.
eyes. But yeah, they weren't there at early in the morning.
Interesting.
But they don't do their thing all night, right? When it gets cooler, when it gets dark.
I mean, I do think that they probably settle down in the canopy and rest and then wait till it gets warmer again.
Okay.
I feel like the other thing is northern Michigan. I mean, we have a lot of awesome things, but I think we have awesome weather for SWD.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get screaming hot. Like Southwest Michigan definitely has way hotter
The burner.
temperatures. Yeah. Isn't it? I actually feel like I've been to Southwest Michigan and it's been so hot I thought I was going to die.
It
and
is.
I'm like,
It's so
where?
funny.
Why?
It's so strange. It's only 3-4 hours away to our farm, and you get down there, you open up the door, and you're like, what is happening down here? You could be 80 up here, and you get down there, and it's only 92, but the sun just beats different down there. It's
Why is that? I have
it's so
felt that
crazy.
same thing. We had a big project on pollination for 5 years, and we'd go Southwest, West Central, and up here. And every time we'd go Southwest, my crew was like, no. And I'm like, yes, we have to go.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, I've been working on the night shift for a decade now, but I remember working on the day shift down there. It's like, I don't know how they keep the machines from overheating, and they're just chugging bottles of water left and right. It's
It's brutal. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's so different down there. But yeah, so again, Southwest Michigan, I think it's hot enough for the population.
Right.
Seems to dissipate early, and you guys get done with harvest.
Yes,
sooner.
we start down
Yeah.
there real quick. The last couple of years we've been starting sometimes in the third week of June,
Yeah.
and we're done down there by the 4th of July, which is earlier and earlier it seems based on our spring. So I don't think that we see most of those problems because we're done and over down there. But then you come up here and we triple the acreage, and a lot of the time we can't, with our industry, we can't process all of the fruit that we can harvest at the same time. So we're asking growers to extend, holding their fruit out, which can be difficult with SWD, brown rot, and stuff like that. So again, very interesting to try and battle those those bugs.
The other thing I think about, you guys, is I think about the future is like, where are we going to process or pack or whatever? If we're going to truck things, what is that?
How far?
Yeah, how far? And like the other thing is, what is the tipping point where we pack our own fruit, or we have more than one or more than 2 or 3 processors up here? And again, trying to figure that out in light of like everyone from a pandemic that's now moving here from California or Colorado, and housing prices. I feel like this area is up for a lot of challenges, I think, for the future of sustaining agriculture. And I feel like that processing or packing piece is part of that.
Right. It's just trying to find more value added for the fruit, I guess. But there's only a couple people that are picking cherries anymore and manufacturing fruit. So it's becoming more and more difficult. You see that with people getting out, and then unfortunately other farms are either absorbed or pulled out.
Yeah.
You don't want to see, but that's pressure from more housing for more people coming to this area, because it's plastered everywhere all over now that Traverse City is an awesome place to be in the summer, a good place to retire, and it's driving the exact opposite for agriculture.
I mean, I agree. But even I came over to see you guys today, and it took me a while to get over here, just with traffic and like this second week of December.
In December, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
like-
it's year round now, where I feel like before it was like kind of that July, you know, when we owned Tandem, it was like July 4th through the end of August was kind of like go time. And if you screw that up, you can forget it for the rest of the year. But that is not the case anymore. And so it's really changed. And that housing pressure, I feel like is really, I think that plays into ag as well. Like, where are you going to house your summer workers, your temporary workers? I don't even have a place to house my summer techs. So if my summer tech doesn't have a grandma or a boyfriend's uncle's cousin that lives somewhere in northern Michigan, we don't have anywhere to house those summer techs. So I feel like we just have a lot of pressures in ag to continue to do what we do compared to other places around the country.
Before we hop topics, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but spotted lanternfly. I mean, it was a big rave for a while, right? Like, oh, it's coming. Can you give us an update on that? Do you know an update on that?
There've been in a few counties so far, but it still is not a big deal yet. I think the grape guys are going to be concerned. That's mainly what they cause. And we don't have a lot of tree of heaven north of Clare either. So that's kind of like, those two go hand in hand.
Gotcha.
So we haven't seen them yet. I have seen them in real life before in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they're pretty impressive in terms of you're kind of a weird entomologist that could appreciate that. But there are a lot of them, on a tree, or you could see them. And they're actually big. I mean, so I feel like these SWD are so tiny,
little.
tiny. I mean, spotted lanternfly are a good inch, so they're a big bug. And so that's just also really different too. But I think we're still okay, but I think it's still on our radar in terms of we trap for them, and we have people looking out all the time.
Okay.
So, and we work with MDARD on that front.
Gotcha.
This episode is supported by Wilbur Ellis, delivering what growers need to succeed, from inputs and insights to long-standing partnerships across every acre and every season. Are you good with your spotted?
Yeah. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Have you ever seen them?
Nope.
They're really pretty.
I mean, I've seen pictures, but I keep scouting, waiting till I find one.
Do you do grapes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the question I get a lot.
About Steve?
Yeah. Steve, do you really scout grapes?
Yes.
No. Like, the media always is like, oh, cherries are out, grapes are in. It's so not true.
No, it's not.
I know, but why do they keep saying that?
It's funny. I go to a lot of work meetings, and these suppliers are like, "Oh, Steve, up north with the grapes." I'm like, the table grapes in Southwest Michigan. Like, one farmer probably has more than what is up here. Like, we don't have that many.
Because I just got appointed to the Michigan Craft Beverage Council. I think someone told me we have 3850. Is that right?
I thought it was in the twos, but
I think it's in the threes. But I thought it was 35, and I thought it was up a little bit. But
okay.
So the other thing about that industry in general, or cider or whatever, just people aren't drinking like they used to. So then there's like a lot of like grapes that aren't being used.
Yes.
Exhibit A.
Yeah, right. I know it's been 3 years since I've had an alcoholic beverage.
Oh, good for you.
I know.
Is it for health reasons?
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
I did like a challenge where I didn't drink for 70 days. What is that? Yeah.
Yeah. That's
75 hard, and then I just was like on top of my game, and I was like, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I feel like that happens.
God bless.
You should try it. You need to try it.
Whoa!
A lot of judging going on in this room.
Whoa!
But Steve, I have to tell you, you are not good for our business.
I know.
will not be coming
It will come back around.
Yeah.
It will.
And also, like, you have a lot going on. So, like,
Yes.
it's hard to keep track of all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I get it.
I gotta be ready to go all the time. I
Yes,
can't be hungover.
exactly.
I can't be
tired.
Right.
I imagine waking up hungover with 4 kids is like a
It's terrible.
trying to avoid that like the
And
plague.
your to-do list is super long, and Wilbur and
Yeah.
Myrtle Mods and
Yeah, it
Orchard
seems
View
overwhelming.
Farms. Yes.
Yes, I can understand that. But there's a lot of that sentiment right now in like, kombucha's hot, like probiotic drinks, things like that. And so it's interesting when I sit on this council of like trying to figure out like how we kind of increase the number of apples we make into cider or grapes into wine. And everyone's like, well, at this point, we got grapes, a lot of excess grapes. We got a lot of excess cider or, apples. So it's been an interesting time to see that because that was not on a lot of people's radar.
Yeah.
So
Make some healthy drinks.
Yeah,
well,
do you do
Paul
NAs?
Vanderhyde, we don't yet. Well, we do out of the tasting room. So we make homemade ginger ale, and then we make a rotating switch ale. So there's always people that don't drink or the DDs or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we've always done that. But Paul Vanderhyde, Vandermill, so he's a big cider operation in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And he's the president of the Michigan Cider Association. His biggest seller right now is NA Honeycrisp Sparkling. He sells them in Myers. Check them out. Yeah, my kid
Interesting.
loves them. Yeah,
Wow.
she'll suck down. They're little tiny cans, but they're sweet, they're bubbly, and they're made out of Honeycrisp. But that's his
That's
biggest
cool.
seller right now.
I know that we've talked about it a lot. Is we're having bigger problems seems to be in the last couple of years with brown rot. Are we getting resistance even more in the last couple of years? I know that Zach said they took some samples from Amos Farms.
Yep.
To see, I don't know. He never said what that came back with. I don't know if they sent those to you.
Yep. Well, they went down to George. So George Sundin will be at Expo talking about brown rot because he's got some new data. I mean, it still looks like our isolates are sensitive. So you remember the obligatory curve there. And so when that peak of that curve shifts towards the right, that means that more of the isolates are becoming what we call less sensitive. So maybe not resistant, but they're less sensitive. So you need higher rates or more applications to actually do the killing. But I would say that our SDHIs are still working right now. So that's good. But the problem, telling is that we don't have anything in the pipeline to replace those. So they may be working now, but what's 3, 5, I don't know what that longevity is. And so that's a concern for us.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's a huge concern for specialty crops. And I talked to the IR4 folks 2 weeks ago. We went down to Trevor Nichols for the fruit team meeting. And so the IR4 program is that program how we get new chemicals in specialty crops. So I always think, we live in cherry country. Cherries are the biggest thing. You go outside of this area and it's like, no chemical company is going to make a chemical for cherries. You know what I mean? There's no money to be made in that. They make them for corn, wheat, soybeans. So to get those new materials into the pipeline for specialty crops is something called IR4. And so that's Pete Nelson. Dr. Nelson's awesome. He helps Michigan out. We work with him. And so we can get those chemicals tested. So things like brown rot is a big concern. So we're always looking for new fungicides that would maybe be, for some kind of corn fungus that could be used in cherries.
Yeah, they could tweak or
Yes,
or
and
apply
I
it.
don't think there's a ton of stuff in the pipeline right now.
It's concerning.
It's super concerning. So that's why our work, I don't know if you've seen our work, we'll talk about it at Orchard Show. George wasn't really excited about it, but I'm like, George, we just got to go back and look at every single copper that's out there. I mean, because I got guys telling me this is burning out this. I have growers telling me this low, copper actual formulation's really good. Let's just evaluate them. So we've been evaluating for 2 years to separate kind of the men from the boys on the copper materials that work. Copper is like one of the oldest materials we have. I mean, that's kind of where we are right now. I was trying to go back and because we don't have new materials for leaf spot or other things.
Right.
And so again, that's why we're looking at coppers. And then the concern is also what kind of phytotoxicity we get with copper.
Yep.
And so that's why we've got a greenhouse trial where we're actually spraying multiple times with copper, and then we built a cute rain shower, and so we put the trees under a shower to mimic rainfall to give you guys a rule of thumb of how much copper is too much before you burn the heck out of the trees.
Yeah. Yeah, we use a lot of badge, which I think, if I remember last year, badge was getting a lot of positives in some of the studies that I saw. But when we do it, you have to pay attention, yes, the temperature, humidity, and we also do things like safen it with lime in order to keep from. I think there's definitely things you can do to help prevent phyto.
Yeah, I
on your
agree.
trees, too.
So I think badge X2 did better than what's the other badge?
SC.
Steve? Yes,
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah, we use a lot of the X2,
The
especially in the
X2
organics.
is, I think did really well. The other thing is, lime's a pain in the neck. Guys don't want to use that. It's it screws up it's a mess in your tank. It's a mess in your sprayer. So that's the other thing. We've been testing a lot of stuff to to look at it without lime because I just want to get away from that if we can, just because it's such a mess.
Yep.
So the other work that we did that was assuring to me, so even if you don't get phytotoxicity, do you cause damage to the leaves that cause them to drop off when you use ethyl? So we did that last year. So we basically sprayed copper season long in our efficacy trial. Then we went and sprayed ethyl. Well, okay, we rated the trees for defoliation and leaf spot before. Then we applied ethyl. We waited the 7 days, and then we went in again, and then we mimicked shaking to see if we'd get defoliation because of the copper plus ethyl. Will that equal more defoliation? And no, the answer is no. So that's really good news for you guys, because that's what I thought. So even if you don't burn them off where you're actually seeing the leaves drop and getting those phytotoxins so bad that you're dropping the leaves, is it that combination of using ethyl? Because we've seen ethyl damage, especially when it's hot and dry.
You can burn it.
Oh, yeah,
you
for
burn
sure, for
the
sure.
leaves.
Especially sweet cherries, they're so susceptible to ethyl damage. But yeah, so I feel like the copper work we're doing, I don't really see any worries about that combination of the ethyl plus multiple copper applications causing extra phytotox from our work. So that's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
To answer that question, sum it up, everything that we just said was, so we're lacking things coming down the pipeline, but there's some interesting research that will be shown at the expo here next week.
Oh, yeah. You should definitely go to Georgia's show, and everyone should definitely come to the Orchard and Vineyard show right down the street. So
What are the
January
dates for that?
13th and 14th.
Awesome. Then the last thing I wanted to talk about was something that I had seen on our farm, which was black stem borer, which I had seen some. I think Heather Leach did some research in our sweet cherries. And I don't know I think that you had talked with Jason a little bit, and you guys decided, or that was an ambrosia beetle compared to an actual black stem borer that was attacking our sweet cherries, which I thought was interesting because I'd seen it in our apple orchard, our new farm, where attacking the younger trees that are, if you're watching, the size of a pen compared to the ones that had a little bit more girth on the trunk. But the sweet cherries, they were a much larger tree. And so it was interesting to see that, where you could see the wilting. And I went over, and I mean, they were all up and down the trunks.
And Heather, she's awesome, by the way. If you guys haven't hung out with her, she's pretty awesome. So she works out of the station. She's the technician for the tree fruit entomologist, but she's housed at the Northwest Station. So I love having her there. She's so fun to bounce ideas off of. But she actually found a new species of, well, new to us, of ambrosia-type beetle in Benzie County in apples. And then, so the ambrosia beetles that we're finding in different species, that's a new for us as well. And so then that begs the question as to what's going on in our woodlots, that they're causing those to move out of those woodlots into our commercial orchards. And so I feel like there's a lot of stuff we don't know. The thing that blows my mind about that bug is we saw an orchard in Empire that just got nailed by these. And I don't know if it's because they were surrounded by the lakeshore, the sleeping bear, all those woods there. I don't know. But when you look at an ambrosia beetle or a black stem borer, especially in young apple trees, it's a tiny, tiny little hole. And it's a tiny, tiny little beetle. And then the thing doesn't even eat the tree. You know what I mean? It's creating these fungal gardens for its little babies in there, and then they can munch off this fungi that they're making in the tree. If you look at some of those galleries and stuff, they're not very long. I don't understand how that tiny bug is causing, that tiny hole is causing a whole tree to die.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating part is that you do a great job managing it for a couple of years, and all of a sudden you bring a tree from young all the way up to production, and you lose it just like that with one little bug.
But how does that one little tiny bug,
Right,
is there some kind of chemical, and I know that I'm not alone in thinking and worrying about this, that the nursery industry is suffering terribly because they have problems with this. And nursery, not even just apples, but the ornamental guys have huge problems with black stem borer and other types of ambrosia beetles. So it's just really interesting to me to understand. And then we never had problems up here. The first time I saw it was over Cedar Way. And it was because one of the growers actually pulled out a bunch of his old trees, put in some new trees, but he didn't burn the burn pile. So I think they came from the burn pile and jumped over to his new trees. And the other thing that really bugs me about it too, those insects, is when your tree's in stress. So Heather's got this crazy new potted plant, trying to understand tree stress and what calls them in. And we've done multiple projects with black stem borer and trying to understand stress. So she's been overwatering or underwatering trees to because they get called in by that ethylene. So they're called in when those trees are under stress. And so we hopefully are going to have some answers with some of the work we've been doing at the station. We put all our little potted trees to bed for the winter, and we'll get them out and do it again next spring.
That's exciting. Yeah, because that was
We
definitely
tried.
interesting.
Yeah,
Because
it is exciting.
Because I had seen it in the apples, and I was like, then I was walking around one of the sweet box, and I was like, yeah, that kind of looks like that, but I've never heard of it in sweet cherry trees. And that orchard was planted in 2019. So, I mean, the trunks were that big that they were getting into. I was like, oh. And then I start cutting into it, and then you see the little hole, and you're like, wow, you see the little sawdust on the outside.
Yeah, I know that's usually growers, when you say, oh, look at the sawdust, that's out there for about, I don't know, a millisecond. You know what I mean? It blows or gets rained on. It doesn't stick around for very long. They're cool to see, though, when you see the little like toothpicks of sawdust.
Yeah.
So we're going to stop here as a good place to take a break, and then we will do a part 2 because this is a great conversation with Nikki, as we thought it would be. That's why we fought really hard to make this episode happen. So thanks to Wilbur Ellis for supporting this episode with more than 100 years experience. They're helping growers move forward with custom solutions, expert advice, and trusted products. So this is available on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast. We will be back next week with the second half of this episode. There's more yet to come. So if you enjoyed this one, stick around and... Well, not stick around, I guess.
Don't wait. Don't hold your breath.
It's going to be a long wait. You might need some cider then.
Yes, don't hold your breath. But be on the lookout for part 2 of this episode. So we'll catch you guys in the next one.
See ya.